Aidan Fogarty's with us. Good morning to you, Aidan. How you doing?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good. What was the Kilkenny WhatsApp groups like when the news breaks that Shefflin's going to Galway?
Yeah, it was actually funny you should mention the WhatsApp groups. During the week, so we have our own kind of WhatsApp group. So a few ex-hurlers, JJ and Tommy and Steph and Henry's in it as well. And we put up the Davy Fitz came across it. No, I think it was on the score or one of them things. And we put up Davy Fitz is going to Galway, and we were kind of saying, "Geez, that's amazing," And Henry didn't say a word. I was kind of waiting to see, because I actually heard it on the grapevine there earlier on that he was in contention for it. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't want to say it to him on the WhatsApp group either. But he didn't say anything. He was cute enough. But yeah, look, there's mixed emotions. I think for me, there's mixed emotions because it kind of feels like we're losing kind of one of our own, and I don't mean that kind of like, it just feels that Galway already seem like a championship contender, and they're just going to gain all this experience, and they're going to gain kind of just a great guy, and I think it's a great appointment from the county board in Galway.
Explain that to us, will you? Because you obviously shared a dressing room with him, less when obviously he wasn't your manager, but it does seem like the leadership that he had was clear, the charisma that he had, and the power to get people to produce their best and to work hard was there. Is that fair enough? Was it actually like that? Did he already have a quasi-leadership role?
Yeah, look, Henry just always had, he was a brilliant hurler, and I think for hurlers on the pitch, and I've only played with Henry, I haven't been managed by him at all, but I've only played with Henry. And when you see guys playing on the pitch and producing the goods on the pitch, backing up the words in the dressing room, you kind of really stand by him. And I think everything that he won for Kilkenny, he dragged him through league games, he dragged him into All-Irelands, he drew the All-Ireland 2012 on his own back. He's won Hurler of the Year 3 times. He has 10 All-Stars. Just crazy amounts of accolades to his name. But still, he's one of the most grounded, most honest and most humble guys you can ever come across. And I think that's a great attribute to a fella like that. And I think that's what he's probably going to bring to Galway. He's going to bring just an honesty and an intensity to a team that that maybe Galway are lacking just slightly. But just on the field, the question was, on the field, he was just a leader, and he didn't talk that whole lot in the dressing room. But when he talked, you'd obviously listen. But it wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about kind of, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. It was back to the honesty and the work rate. We might be talking about we should be here, we should be marking these guys. Even leading up to matches, you'd be talking about different strategies you'd have. But Henry would bring it back to brass tactics, and he'd say, lads, if you're not working hard, if you're not making the team kind of pulse intensely, it's not going to happen. You can talk all the tactics and go out the window. So I just believe his honesty and everything that he's done for himself he'll just bring that to Galway.
Aidan, just when you mentioned there about everything he brings to the table, what part of you is worried for what Kilkenny are facing down the tracks from Galway?
Well, I think the actual appointment is actually interesting. I think if a Cork team maybe approached them, or maybe a Clare team approached them, I don't think he would have went. I think he looked at Galway and he looked at what they had. And Henry's no fool either. He was in with Ballyhale, who were a very good team anyway at the time. He's gone into Thomastown, who contested county finals and league finals already. So he sees potential in a team and he goes to them. Now, the thing with Galway, I think they play kind of like the way Henry would like them to play. They have big men and very mobile men in the ranks. So they like the Coonies down the middle, the Burks and all that. And then they have like the Concannons and things on either side. And I think Henry, the way he kind of plays the game is kind of a traditional sense, but his use of the ball is so important. And I think he's seen that with Galway. He's seen potential there. He's seen how probably they played this year and how they kind of, I suppose, maybe let themselves down in a way. They didn't turn up at all. And he just sees a massive potential that Henry can bring to it. And I think the style of the team and the way he plays, he still likes the long ball. He still likes people to win their own ball. And Galway seem to kind of do that and have the potential in players to do that. So if there's another team, I don't think he would have went. But I think he just sees that in Galway.
That's pretty interesting. So, if we all have to remember that the thing that anybody who's getting involved in intercounty management has to believe at the start of the season is that they can beat Limerick. Because they're like Dublin were the challenge for everybody. Everybody had to come up with a style to beat them. You can't copy Limerick. You can't do a kind of facsimile version or a scanned version in. You have to do something completely that's your own identity, that everybody believes is going to be a winning game plan. Can Galway do that?
Well, I tell you what, when you look back, when were Limerick last beaten in a meaningful championship game? They were beaten by a Kilkenny side in 2019. That you'd say, could you see Galway replicating what Kilkenny did that day? You could, and they have the class then as well. They have, in my opinion, they probably have even more class, just as regards of the underage talent they have coming through. But Aidan, that's an interesting one, just on Limerick as well. You don't expect, by the sounds of you don't expect Henry to bamboozle them maybe with tactics. It would be more a mixture of the old school and the new school.
Yeah, for sure, lads. Henry's not going to complicate things. He's going to bring in professionalism and all that to it. And that's standard in this day and age. Like, everyone's going to bring in professionalism to it and all that. But I think, if anything, Henry is just going to keep it back to maybe just normal, run-of-the-mill, don't overcomplicate things with this Galway team. I think he's going to bring other aspects to it that maybe people might even think about. I think he's going to bring an honesty and a hunger and a work rate to the forwards. Henry has always talked about a work rate out of the forwards. You won't win in Ireland unless the forwards are working. And if you looked at Galway, and what they're probably lacking in the last couple of years is consistency, is that real hunger there and that kind of intensity to kind of win matches when they're under pressure. And I think also, I'm talking about intensity and all, and that's, you have to bring that to matches. But there's the other side of Galway, which I feel is kind of maybe people forget about, is the actual enjoyment of hurling. These guys are 20, 21, 22 years of age, up to whatever, 32, 33 years of age. And it's not a professional game, it's amateur. And Henry would have often spoken, we would have spoken about in dressing rooms ourselves, that maybe on a balmy Sunday night, going out to play a championship game, or going out even to training, this is what you live for, this is what you have to enjoy. And, reading between the lines, even with Joe Cannon kind of stepping away, was he just feeling the pressure of it all? Was he not enjoying the game? So I think Henry's going to bring that aspect to it to a huge, to bring these guys in. Lads, you have to enjoy the game first, and then we'll roll on from there. And I think that's one aspect that lads mightn't think that's important, but it's hugely important. And I feel Galway are lacking that. Yeah,
he immediately becomes a figurehead and takes a bit of pressure off any of those young fellas. If there's a mistake, he comes out and says, that was my mistake. He's able to do that. The one thing I'd say about the inconsistency is that it seems as if that inconsistency can happen when not everybody agrees or is fully au fait with or fully understands or is fully indoctrinated in what the plan is. And it sounds like what you're saying is that there'll be a straightforward plan that's explained, repeated, and so everybody knows what their role is. Do your job, as Bill Belichick would say. If you don't know what your job is, you can look a little bit confused.
Yeah, absolutely, Jared. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think Henry's going to go up initially and probably won't say anything for the first couple of months. Obviously he'll have his talks and things like that, but he's not going to talk about tactics. He's going to strip it all back. He's going to take everything out of it, take all the complications out of it, and just train like a normal kind of amateur team trains. And then he's going to bring intensity, he's going to bring the work rate, and bring a hunger, and make lads want to come to training and compete against each other. Like, there's so many aspects to this Galway job now. Like, he probably needs to find a couple of more guys as well. So he's going to need a Galway figurehead in with him. Someone who's level-headed, who's not involved maybe in the club scene, as in, has talks or has players themselves that he knows on the club scene. Someone just totally out of it, but knows his hurling. And he's going to have to bring lads into the panel and compete against the older guys as well. There's a lot of guys there maybe that are thinking, have I enough of Galway hurling? He won't want them to go either. But yeah. He wants to bring them all in together on the first year initially. And then, come championship, he'll start talking about his game plan. Now, I feel it's easy to talk because it's Limerick are winning and everyone looks at the team that are winning championships and stuff. But I have a feeling it's going to be similar to the Limerick tactics. It's going to be the work rate, but it's going to be a long ball to the square as well. It's going to be the use of the ball. Henry always talks about the use of the ball, intelligent play, intelligent hurlers. And Galway have that in abundance. And it's exciting times for Galway. If I was a Galway hurler and if I was thinking about leaving, I probably wouldn't leave. I'd be just interested to see what he brings to it.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting.
Oh, massively. And that's the thing as well. There's that buzz about it in Galway again. They've had a dismal 2021, but lads are surely re-energised by that yesterday.
What do you do about Cian Lynch problem though if you're Galway? He must be, I understand the pare everything back and make everybody understand this is our plan, but at the same time, part of your brain needs to constantly be going, what am I going to do about Cian Lynch?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be something that's operating in the background, that they'll have, an idea ready, or a lot of it is having a player ready that will be able to pick him up and they will be able to take him out of a game. But I think Galway probably did overcomplicate things in recent years. I know they were close to Limerick in 2020, but they were playing a sweeper that just they're not accustomed to that, and it was something that takes a while to bed in, as we've seen with Davy and Wexford. I do expect, as Taggy says, for Henry to strip it back a bit and for it to be a lot more, like, I put it to you this way: if they're trying to do what Limerick are doing, they're not going to beat them by doing what Limerick are doing, so they have to do something different. And what Taggy describes there, it may seem a small bit old school, but it's definitely different, and it will be something different for Limerick to deal with next year,
and something I presume that appeals to everybody coming in straight away, and then you layer in your complications as you go, and you know who's capable of actually delivering what you want them to deliver. That question though about how concerned the people of Kilkenny are, you said at the start it's kind of mixed emotions. Fear must be a little part of that. What if it turns out that Henry Shefflin is an absolute managerial genius and you never get him back because he spends 20 years there winning 10 of the next 20 All-Irelands?
Yeah, it's a crazy one, but Henry loves Kilkenny. And I think if Henry comes up against Brian Cody, which probably will happen, I don't even know the draw for the championship if it's made already, but look, the possibility is Kilkenny are going to meet Galway. It's going to be a strange dynamic, because the two of them have so much respect for each other, and they still have respect for each other, of course. Nothing's going to change there. But it's just going to be so strange to see Henry come up against Brian, who's, I suppose, taught him so much in ways and won so much, both of them, on and off the field. It's going to be crazy, but Henry won't want, and I think if Galway beat Kilkenny, Henry won't be jumping inside. Yeah, he'd be delighted. He's a driven, very focused guy and wants to succeed. But deep inside, he'd be gutted that Kilkenny loses, and that's probably the calibre of the man as well. That he's going to he stick to his own. I think I seen an interview with Brian O'Driscoll there. They're out golfing, and he was talking about training other teams against Ballyhale, and he just said, "Look, it didn't have it in my gut, but here he is going to Galway now that could possibly play Kilkenny in a championship game." So it's going to be a strange dynamic, but he won't take the foot off the gas. If they're playing Kilkenny, he will want to beat them.
Just on that, Ger, as well, you don't know when the scenario arises potentially for the Kilkenny job to come up. Just hypothetically, if the Kilkenny job came up this time next year and Henry's after, just say he's after winning an Ireland with Galway, or he's after getting to an All-Ireland final. Can you leave after 1 year? Or if the other job comes up, like he's made a commitment to Galway now, similar to Liam Cattell making a commitment to Waterford.
It's complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it does get complicated. So like that's going to be as interesting this time next year or the year after, whenever. It's going to be really interesting to see how he gets on with Galway, and then, if that, the biggest managerial vacancy probably in the history of the GA, if that arises and he's committed to somewhere else, what happens then? So that's going to be an interesting one.
Well, just long-term thinking, do you want to be the manager who comes after Brian Cody? It turns out history would suggest you do not want to do that job in any sport.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Desi Farrell, I suppose, came in after Jim Gavin, I suppose, and won All-Ireland straight away. But yeah, there's so many. I've never seen anything like the moving parts in the kind of inter-county carousel, the managerial carousel. I've never seen anything like it this year, and this is the kicker of them all to finish it out.
Not to bring this all back to Plan B, but I think that's actually a function of the fact that you have two very competitive championships, and all of a sudden, almost every job, there is a potential for you to turn the team around.
Yeah, no, fair point, yeah, 100%, yeah. And like Taggy said there, like they will definitely play in the Leinster round robin next year, because we go back to the round robin after 2 years without it because of the pandemic. Taggy, how do you see that going? Henry coming up against Cody on the sideline.
Will that be Nolan Park, or will they move to Croker?
I'm not. Well, they might have to. They might have to move to Croker due to demand.
Yeah, it's going to be about the two managers at this stage. It's not really going to be about the two teams. It's going to be hard. Obviously, it's going to be harder for obviously Henry, because he's the one training Galway. Supposedly the enemy. I'm talking to the Kilkenny man here. Brian has obviously been Kilkenny for the last 19 years or whatever it is. So, and even on that fact that if the job becomes a vacant, look, you just don't know how the job in Kilkenny is going to go, because Brian's just been there so long. And as you said, Ger, is that a poison chalice? If Brian goes, as history suspects, is a job that you don't want it to do for the first couple of years anyway. But I suspect Henry will train Kilkenny at some stage. But it's going to be a strange dynamic. It's going to be, look, already it's nearly exciting. It's amazing the way just one kind of move in the GA, a managerial thing, can make it exciting, and it's going to be crazy, because Henry's learned so much from Brian Cody. He has, and he said that in the past, and we all have, for leadership, for how to pick teams, how to be kind of cutthroat and things. And Henry has brought that even to Ballyhale. He made some really tough decisions at Ballyhale, I remember, for the county final and things like that. And he played with these guys all through his career, but still had to make him. So he's learned so much from Brian. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that I think it has immediately made everything next year interesting. It makes the league interesting to see exactly what happens and what the level of experimentation is like. We haven't even asked you about Kilkenny. What is the general state of play at the moment in terms of where you guys feel the team is at, and is there anything happening in the club championship that suggests there's some new talent coming through that are going to nail down a place for Brian Cody next year?
Yeah, unfortunately, Gerard, there's probably not on the club scene. I've gone to a few games myself, and I suppose looking back over years, you'd be going to guys and lads would be standing out for their clubs. Inter-county hurlers would be standing out for clubs, and rightly so, and they should be leading. But it's not really happening in the club scene, as I can see at the minute. Now, there's always one or two that comes through, and they just seem to play better for county rather than club. But at the minute, there's not, and there was fierce disappointment after the Cork semi-final last year. We were on a bit of a roll. We were going well. We were a team kind of hard to beat, which are all the characteristics of Brian. And then we kind of just petered out in a semi-final. And then if you look back at it, I suppose we played a Dublin team who were kind of had COVID issues, and we played a Wexford team who could have nearly bet us only for a crossbar decision. So it's a fine line hurling. And then you kind of say, would we even got a draw in a semi-final if Brian Cody wasn't there? Guys are kind of talking what would happen if he changed it. Lads are saying about the North, about Mickey Hart leaving Tyrone and they win there Ireland. It's a totally different scenario. But I feel we wouldn't have even got a draw against Cork that day if Brian Cody wasn't at the helm, because it was pure determination that got us over the line there, and then it just petered out. So we need to find a few extra guys. I think we need TJ. He's 32 years of age. A lot of Walter Welch pushing on as well. We need to find one or two kind of speedy, fast, and kind of different type of hurlers. I think at the minute Kilkenny kind of have a lot of the same type of hurlers. We need something kind of different, a different dynamic. And look, we'll have to see in the next couple of months how that's going to fare out.
All right, well, suddenly everybody's paying attention to everything. Good to have you with us this morning, Taggy. Cheers.
Thanks, lads. Thanks, million.